Hello and welcome to the Roundtable. Well, today we're taking a look at the politics of power play. How the BJP is going to go to any lengths to get power, whether it means destabilizing governments, as is what happened in Madhya Pradesh, maybe Karnataka in some time back, and of course, all that is happening in Maharashtra. And did they learn this from the Congress of old, of course, the Congress of Indira Gandhi, where we saw some of this happening? Now, of course, the Congress seems to have just let the plot go on many things. I know Maharashtra is not the Congress domain, but we are seeing the opposition just losing the initiative, losing the narrative, while we have a very aggressive BJP, a BJP that makes it clear that, about its politics, about the fact that it's here to rule. They're talking about first Congress Mukt Bharat, Congress Lup Bharat, but Prime Minister Modi is also has been saying in campaign rallies that before the next Lok Sabha, he's going to make sure that there is going to be no Congress chief minister in place. Of course, as you know, both Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan are going to poll just before the Lok Sabha. So interesting times ahead, the politics of power play, we're going to take a look at that. Joining me is a panel of experts. We have Nalin Mehta, whose book, The New BJP, is just out, and he's in fact written a lot about what we're going to be talking about. Kalyani Shankar, who's also a veteran journalist, her book on the Pandora's Daughters is out. We have Shubhrata Bhattacharya, he's a former editor, and Pankaj Vora, managing editor of our very own Sunday Guardian. Nalin, you captured this phenomena that we talked about, the new aggressive BJP, and in Maharashtra, maybe they're not coming in front, but they were very clear they wanted the state, and they are really going ahead to do it. How do you explain the politics of the BJP?
So I think irrespective of whatever is the outcome of whatever happens in Maharashtra,
correct.
There is a difference in the current rebellion compared to the previous three rebellions that happened in the Shiv Sena. Because when it was Shagan Bhujbal in 1991, then there was Narayan Rane, then Raj Thackeray. All of those rebellions in the 30-year period roughly 30-year period in which Shiv Sena and BJP were aligned, the Shiv Sena was a dominant party in Maharashtra. BJP was the junior partner in the alliance, number one. Number two, and it was content to be that. What happened is, and that was the era of the more benign era of Vajpayee, Advani. It was an older BJP.
Right.
This new BJP, what I call the new BJP, post 2014 in the Modi Shah era, is a different beast. And the reason for that is, in Maharashtra, for example, see, if you see the pattern from 1990 to 2004 onwards, in every election, Shiv Sena would win 10 to 15 seats more than BJP, roughly, on average, and about 4 to 6% vote share, always more than BJP. That changed for the first time in 2009, when the BJP won one more seat than Shiv Sena. From 2014 onwards, the BJP decided strategically, we are no more content to be a junior partner, to leave Maharashtra to the other Hindutva party, as opposed to us. We'll be the dominant players, because they'd seen the signs changing from 2009. And in 2014, when they fought the election separately, BJP won about double the seats of Shiv Sena. And when they fought the election together again in 2019, again the BJP won just about double the seats of Shiv Sena. So the BJP is very clear that, look, we in Maharashtra now, if there's going to be, we are both parties of Hindutva, we are going to be the dominant party, and this is a sign of the new BJP. This is an aggressive, expansionist BJP, which is not happy with the old status quo.
This is it, Kalyani. We've been talking about how the BJP also doesn't have many allies anymore, but it's happy. Ekla Chalo, they want to be the dominant, aggressive player in any equation.
You see, initially, I recall the early 80s, nobody was willing to align with the BJP. I used to feel very sorry for the BJP, because they said we are willing and the other party is not willing. So from there, Vajpayee had got 24 partners, 24 allies, and he was able to sustain it for 6 years. And then when Modi ji came also, he wanted to make it as an NDA. He didn't say BJP, it's a BJP-led government, no doubt. And slowly, every ally had left, hardly about 2-3 people. But probably before election, they might try to get some allies. And the second thing is that, like you might have heard the story of, somebody getting into the train, running train, and then he finds a little space, and then slowly occupy the whole seat. So it's like that. BJP first go to any party, any state, then just tries to get a little, and then a little, and then a little, then becomes the main opposition party. Then, of course, naturally, they are there as a right to become the ruling party. That's what is happening in most of the states which BJP is going to. In Bengal, it happened, every Orissa, it happened. Most other states, it's been happening. That is a strategy, I think they want to do it. But how far they can succeed after 2024, you see, if Congress sort of survives, which is a possibility, but then it can't give a good fight. If the entire opposition come together and join and put up a joint candidate, yes, that would be difficult for the BJP, but it will be a good fight. I can't say it will win, but it will be a good fight. So the problem now for BJP is they are trying to strategize for the 2024. Talk to any BJP leader, they only talk of 2024. Nothing else comes in between. All the other states election, all that. Even Gujarat, I think they are not talking about it now.
Maybe they're confident about Gujarat.
No, maybe whatever it is.
Yeah, too.
So their only aim now is 2024 and get Modi ji elected. That's a 3-time, making a record. All these things. And it's not a record. I think Nehru already had.
They want to beat Nehru's record as the longest serving prime
minister. But of course, Modi ji is following Modi ji is following Indira Gandhi in every step.
Nehru was 16 years. Modi is exactly the halfway point today at 8 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know how many more to go. She said Indira Gandhi, then Modi is always following Indira Gandhi, and that's what I wanted to ask both you and Pankaj is, the Indira Congress was like this, they went after opposition leaders, they destabilized governments. She had governor's rule at the drop of a hat in every state.
The advantage that Mr. Modi has is that it is not known as the Modi BJP, unlike the Indira Congress. Indira Gandhi's politics was, you see, in Indira Gandhi, after 69 split, she spoilt the Congress organization. Congress was an organizationally strong party, and as the split took place, the names of the different parties, the other Congress was called Congress Organization, Congress O, and she was Congress R for requisitionist, because she had requisitioned a AICC meeting. She built her own personality. She didn't allow any organization to grow. In fact, the organization withered slowly. It looked up briefly in the tenure of Sri P.V. Narasimha Rao. In his tenure at Tirupati, for the first time, you see, the Congress looked up, and I think the most glorious years of Congress in the last 30 years has been the period of Sri P.V. Narasimha Rao as the Congress President and Prime Minister. In fact, that government went because of the machinations of people who were all being controlled by Srimati Sonia Gandhi from behind, and today they are reaping the benefits, negative, of that sort of a politics. BJP's main thing, I've read Nalin's book and it's a fantastic book. Another book is coming, written by the press secretary to the president, Ajay Singh.
It's come already.
It's come out.
I was reading that book briefly this morning. It's the architect of new BJP by Penguin. It has got the foreword by Walter Anderson, who authored that
book on RSS. But hard to get back to.
Now, the main thing that has happened in BJP is that ever since Modi took over, Modi's style has been Sangathan style, which is not the style of Congress. Congress does not have a Sangathan. Modi's style is Sangathan style, which is basically hemmed from the RSS philosophy of Sangathan, where the organization secretary matters. Modi himself has served as organization secretary in the party in the 90s.
Okay, I'm going to get Pankaj in on the Indira Gandhi style. Pankaj, you covered that very closely. She was not a Sangathan, but she was herself. I mean, Indira
Gandhi was the greatest mass leader of the last century. There's no doubt over it. No one, even the BBC survey had indicated that there was no leader like her who had such a massive mass appeal. Modi may be trying to replicate her, but he has to go a long way. The difference between Modi and Indira Gandhi was that Indira Gandhi was very accessible. She had a very good feedback system. She had, very, very competent people in various positions.
Yes.
And the thing is that here the feedback system needs to be streamlined a little bit, and there has to be more accessibility. And this is where the difference begins. But I'm sure that with the kind of ambition and the kind of, maturity which Mr. Modi is showing, that he has many years to go and he may catch up and he may, create history of his own
16
making.
plus years, huh?
So that is one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is that in the new BJP, the objectives matter more than the means.
Yeah, that's
And the end is more important than the means, and to achieve those ends, it does not matter whether you achieve them through the BJP, because there is this element of Operation Vibhishan which keeps on taking place, where Mr. Modi likes to and
Woo
Mr. Shah
people.
like to take away, poach other people
Leaders.
from other parties, and then use them to fight against the original parties.
nice one. Huh?
And this has been happening, and this phenomenon came into being right in 2014 itself, when out of the Lok Sabha seats which the BJP won, there were a large number of people who had been imported from the Congress, who had erstwhile Congress background. Similarly, there's another difference here. Earlier it used to be Congress versus the rest. Now it has become BJP versus the rest. Kalyani was rightly pointing out that BJP today is not interested in state elections. Its interest in Maharashtra is also limited, not in splitting Shiv Sena or this thing. It wants to ensure that the three parties which are in power there right now do not fight the elections together. Because if they fight elections together in 2024, then BJP in Maharashtra is
lost.
going to be not going to fare very well. So these are things which come to my mind immediately.
Operation Vibhishan is a good one. I know you wanted to come in, but I have one more factoid, which is not just Nehru's 16 years, but also what Amit Shah has been saying. He wants to beat Rajiv Gandhi's mandate of 400 plus, 84. Huh.
So I wanted to respond a little bit to Pankaj as well, what you were saying. We're making the Modi-Indira Gandhi comparison. I think we should make the Nehru-Modi comparison.
Really?
And that is a counterintuitive one to make, because Nehru and Modi are exact opposite sides of the ideological mirror. Nehru is a lampoon figure for the right and all of that. But I think that's a more apt comparison for one reason, because what Modi has brought to the table is an entirely different idea of India, whether you agree with that idea of India or not. Just as Nehru did. Indira Gandhi essentially continued the older template of Nehru by adding a lot more realpolitik to it. But no prime minister since independence challenged the earlier template and idea of India set by Nehru in a way that Modi has challenged. Even non-Congress prime ministers, including Vajpayee, never challenged that specific thing, at least explicitly. Modi in that sense brings a totally different thing. And there are 2-3 other commonalities. So there is a Nehru era of the subjective nature of what is politics, and there is a Modi idea of the new India. Also, I think in terms of the ideology, Modi is very clear about where he stands ideologically on his ideology, just as Nehru was very clear on where he stood on secularism. Modi is very clear about that. In his victory speech in 2019, he specifically talked about how they will not move from the ideology. So Indira Gandhi made many compromises on ideology, even though she talked in the idiom of Nehruvian India, but she made many more compromises explicitly in a way that Modi is much more similar to Nehru, but from the opposite side of the mirror. That's one thing. The second thing, I think, to respond to what Pankaj was saying about the it was all anti-Congress versus the rest, and now BJP versus the rest. See, in the words of Rajni Kothari, there was once a Congress system, now there's a BJP system, no question about it. This BJP system is for 2 or 3 reasons. One, the BJP is now the dominant party, the default party of the rural Hindi heartland, in a way the Congress once was. And let me give you one factoid, which is that in 2009, the BJP lost its deposits in 170 Lok Sabha seats. Congress lost in roughly around 50 seats. In 2019, BJP lost deposits in 50 seats, Congress lost in 150 seats.
Okay.
So it just disappeared in roughly 150 out of 544 constituencies. So what you are seeing now is the BJP. See, in the last 5 years, the BJP has bought land and built party offices in over 500 districts. In many of these districts where it didn't have party offices earlier. So you have not seen party building, whether you agree with the ideology or not, you have not seen party building of this kind on this scale at a national level since the 1950s Congress. And that's a huge difference.
Hence the Nehru and also. So we're going to take a break and come back and continue this conversation, taking a look at the current BJP and harking back to whether it's the Indira era or the Nehru era. And also what's going to happen to all the regional leaders that are going to be standing up against the BJP. So stay with us. Hello and welcome back to Roundtable. We're taking a look, it's a conversation that's taking off from what's happening in Maharashtra, but we're taking a look at the larger picture over here. Kalyani, what's, Operation Vibhishan, so quick, what they are doing is not so interested in maybe, forming the government in Maharashtra, but in destabilizing the Shiv Sena.
No, destabilizing the Shiv Sena is one way of making sure that next election, BJP will have the tie-up with the Shiv Sena. That is one way of looking at it. And BJP has this strategy, I don't know whether Nalin will agree with me, that they import actually leaders, ready-made leaders, whose face is recognized in the whole country.
Nice.
And then make them something in their own party. Whereas Congress has been losing very stabilized leaders to the BJP. So to that extent, BJP is going according to a plan. And slowly they will try to cooperate like China does, you buy technology and then improve on it and then sell it back.
May I add to Kalyani's point?
Add quickly.
With your permission, Kalyani is absolutely right. You only need to look at Hemanta Biswa Sarma in the Northeast. But the interesting thing which I want to add to her point is, see, India's always had this Ayaram, Gayaram politics, right? In the BJP, in this new BJP, one difference has been, if you look at Northeast, for example, 50% of its ministers in all the Northeastern states, in some states 100%, are imports from other parties. But what's interesting is that most of them came to the BJP before elections were fought, a few months before, Hemanta Biswa Sarma's example, and then they were given the spoils of power after elections were won. These are not just saying power mein aa gaye and then somebody is brought in. So BJP has aggressively gone, quoted people and given them stake. Look at Jyotiraditya Scindia. He was brought in, and so that's a different kind of example.
Yeah.
But the BJP is also distributing the spoils of power to people who come into its fold. It's becoming a bigger social tent, barring Muslims, in ways that the old Congress was.
Okay.
So I have one more point to add. You see, we were just talking about the regional leaders. The biggest threat for BJP is coming from the regional satraps because most of them are personality oriented. And then if they go tomorrow, there is no party of that. If after Mamata, God knows who will come. So like that, so many other parties also. So look at ADMK, what happened after Jayalalitha has gone, the parties fighting with each other, two factions are fighting for leadership. So this is what happens. The same thing happened with the NTR also. During his time, he refused to, name his successor because they all think that they are larger than life and they don't want to say anybody else is equal to them. So that is the way it is going to be. Right now, we have quite a few regional satraps, like Mayawati is still there, though she is taking the sort of backseat now. And then you have Akhilesh Yadav, and more than anybody else, our Naveen Patnaik in Orissa, he has gone 4 times now actually. So, but he has not groomed anybody. So all these things, so if one regional satrap goes, other one comes. Maybe not from the same family, but somebody else. So that threat is there. That is where BJP has to be careful, not the Congress, not the opposition as such, because Modi can always divide the opposition. That's what they have been trying to do all these days.
Orissa is actually, Shubho, the next hunting ground for the BJP also. Everybody's talking about Naveen Patnaik, whether on health grounds, whether on age. The BJP is sensing that it has a chance.
And that's why the next presidential candidate is from Orissa.
Well said, yes.
Tribal.
And a
I
tribal.
would like to comment on two things. Firstly on Vibhishan. Vibhishans come only when things go wrong. Vibhishans took for dharma against Ravan's adharma. So if there will be dharma all around, there will be no Vibhishan. Why only Vibhishan? It may be Jayachand, it may be Mir Jafar. Even Mir Jafar was found by the British because things were not hunky-dory in the court of Bengal.
Correct.
Now, as of getting the people from, Indira Gandhi led the way. She defeated Virendra Patil in Chikmagalur in 1980 when she became the Prime Minister again. She got the same person to be her cabinet minister and gave him important portfolios. You see, so Hemanta Biswa Sarma or Biren Singh in Manipur today, you see, what Modi has done is, he has moved away from the traditional BJP. Today, today the BJP is RSS plus. It is no longer the RSS BJP that we had. Earlier also when BJP was formed, as Kalyani was pointing out, nobody wanted to align with them. Why? How was the BJP formed? To begin with, Jansangh merged its identity into the Janata Party. And immediately the socialists, led by Rajnarayan, Madhulimaya, they started this dual membership issue. Due to which Jansangh members, although everybody knows the JP movement's रीढ़ की हड्डी, the backbone was the RSS. Neither Congress nor Swatantra Party nor Charan Singh's party nor the socialists. In fact, we talk of Indira Gandhi, but we forget that Indira Gandhi, after 71 wars victory and 72 election sweep, faced the 74 railway strike and the JP movement, and unfortunately the High Court took a technical decision and unseated her, and we had the emergency. Very sad. As Pankaj had written in a piece recently, that we also forget that prior to the emergency, Jayaprakash Narayan had given a call to the armed forces and the police to disobey orders of the elected government, which was, I don't think, a very constitutional thing to do. Never mind. The fact is that today you have got BJP, which is slowly but slowly growing on the basis of getting people from other parties. Himanta Biswa Sarma is a very good example you've given. Other examples are also there. And it will keep on growing further, because as other political parties, today Modi's biggest advantage is that he doesn't have excepting for a wiltering Congress, he does not have a national political party. Indira Gandhi faced a Congress O, Swatantra Party, Jan Sangh, the Socialists, PSP, SSP, and even BLD for that matter. It was a UP and Odisha party with Biju Patnaik there. Modi doesn't have a national opposition. He only has got regional parties to contend with, and the regional satraps are holding on to their turf very well.
But for how long?
No, we do not know. I wouldn't like to rule them out.
Okay.
Because Mamata Banerjee has shown that a determined political organization of a regional party can hold out against BJP.
But I want to take off from what Alan said about the comparisons to Nehru rather than Indira. I mean, I found that pretty interesting.
No, firstly, I don't think the comparisons should be made between leaders because they belong to different eras, number one.
But that's what we journalists do.
Number two, when Mr. Nehru, laid the foundation of this country, when he gave the vision for this country, India was a very, very, young country, did not have the resources, the kind of resources you have today.
He talked about redefining the idea of India, not the...
No, the thing is that no one knows what the idea of India is because India is so large. Every person has his own version of the idea of India. And, Mr. Modi has his own vision and he is entitled to it. He's been elected by people for the second time with such a huge majority. But Nalin was talking about ideological purity. I don't think this BJP has ideological purity. When it aligned with PDP, it did not. The example of Northeast leaders, they may have come to BJP for power, but they are not ideologically aligned with BJP. Number two, the thing is that the BJP is perhaps committing the same mistake which Congress under Sonia Gandhi did. It started bringing in people, Madhusudan Mistry, Shankar Singh Waghela, Sanjay Nirupam, Renuka Chaudhary, Rashid Alvi and Mohan Prakash, and at the expense of their own leaders.
If I may say, it is Congressization of BJP.
So
it is.
So when BJP is getting people from outside,
this is Congressization.
When BJP is getting people from outside, it is also at the expense of people who are already there. And BJP is also put everything in one man's basket, which is, I don't think, a very good thing in the very long run, because the RSS principle so far had been country first, organization second, and individual last. Now, this premise or this principle of RSS doesn't seem to be in operation any longer. So, it is for the BJP to travel a long way. It needs to sustain itself, it needs to sustain its organization, it needs to put some ideological spunk in its organization so that it continues. Right now, it is a politics of convenience, it's politics of possibilities, and wherever the main objective is the end and the means do not matter.
I tend to agree. Quick, I'll give you a rebuttal if you want to, Nalin.
Look,
it's not ideology, it's power.
No,
power
it's
is
not.
The ideology.
Look, there is a fundamental difference of at the DNA level between this new BJP and the older BJP. Look, politics is always a game of convenience. Everybody, finds a way. I mean, nobody's saying that ideologically they are pure and all of that. The point is that at a larger level, on core issues of the ideology, this BJP is much more clearer about not being compromised in a way that the Vajpayee BJP was not. There's a qualitative difference between the Vajpayee, and that's because they're different eras. Vajpayee needed allies. These guys are much more powerful, so they can get away with making sure that on core issues they delivered Ram Temple, which is a core issue. They've made the difference. Or they have some of the core. They have changed Article 370.
So they can say my way or the highway.
So they have done it, right? They have delivered. What were the core issues of the BJP? Ram Temple from after the Palampur Revolution of 1989. Article 370, Uniform Civil Code. You've made a change in divorce laws on triple talaq. UCC is being talked about. So this is a different BJP. The point I want to make is, of course, when you bring more people into your tent sociologically, you'll always have problems. The older BJP was an upper caste dominated urban party. This BJP is built significantly on new OBC support. UP shows that. Yes. And to a lesser extent on SC support. Non-Dalit SCs and non-Yadav OBCs. When you bring those people in and you give them positions of power of people that were not in your tent, and so the guy who was there earlier is going to, his chair will go down. Yeah. So obviously you'll have to have that discord. Okay. So far that is not.
Let us remember one thing, that I agree with Pankaj on Vision of India of Nehru. But in 1952, when Bharatiya Janata Sangh was formed, it gave an alternate vision of India. And Modi's government has been, when Modi came into power in 2014, for the first time, Janata Sangh or its successor party had full majority.
Okay.
And having got that, they started implementing the 1952 manifesto, full stop, comma, paragraph by paragraph. So therefore, a political party which comes to power, suppose today, if the Communist Party of India, which was the main political party of India after Congress in the 50s, if they had come to power, would they not have implemented what was their vision of India? Did not the CPIM,
which is not very dissimilar to what the BJP is if you look at the original Congress.
No. I'm talking about the economic policy and otherwise. Even CPIM, when it came to power in West Bengal, it went on to implement what the communists had stood for a long time. Okay. Like Operation Burga to begin with.
Okay, quickly.
I'd just like to add one thing. And BJP is, of course, expanding its base. He's right. Nalin is right that from the upper caste it has shifted to this thing. Now the new president has been selected. She's a tribal from this, and she's a Santhal tribal. But it is going to create politics within the tribal thing also, because Madhya Pradesh is the largest population of tribals, where the Bhils and the Gonds are much more.
Okay.
So this is, we have to wait and watch what kind of impact it has.
But Priya, there is one thing which I want to mention. RSS had been doing a lot of work among the tribals.
Yes,
both in the northeast and also even in Gujarat. So they are going in the same way probably that Murmu's candidature is probably suggested by even RSS. I would
no, whoever it is would have to have the RSS backing.
Yeah, that is true. And so, also I believe that Modi ji Hamesha, he asks, I believe, that Sankatan se koi nahi hai kya? I mean, they can send a panel of lists. So his first priority is for the Sankatan. Next comes other things.
Okay.
So I think he was telling, Nalin was saying.
Yeah. Okay. So on that note, we've had a nice discussion on a wide range of issues. As always, a pleasure to have all of you on the round table. Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Priya.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.